Hello everyone. I was just watching episode 15 of Dr. Stone. I came up across this one frame in particular which really caught my interest. Now it's a really short scene, it's on screen for like not too long, but if you really actually analyze it, there's actually a lot going on, much more than what would ordinarily meet the eye. So today I'm going to analyze each part of the frame and explain how deliberately each and every detail is used to convey something that Dr. Stone is trying to convey, right? So first off, if you look at the scene here, you see that Rui, the town priestess, is actually wearing a purple dress. Now this color might seem slightly arbitrary, but that's not true at all. You have to consider that the world that Senku is in is actually a few thousand years. It's not in the past per se, but several years after civilization seems to have somehow conditionally disappeared in some sense. So they don't have the usual industries and chemical procedures and etc. to make purple dye out of typical industrial fashion as we do today. And if you look it up, you see that in ancient times, at least, and even after ancient times, before the second industrial revolution, I believe, purple dye was still kind of hard to come by. You couldn't. Nowadays, I believe you can just put some chemicals together or something like that, right? But back then, it was much harder. You had to find it in nature. And I believe the ancient Romans and the ancient Greeks, if they wanted purple dye, I believe it was something similar to smash a few thousand seashells together, which was, a pain in the ass. And even, I believe, in ancient Rome, it was like a sort of law that only the really highest elite of people and their society could wear completely purple, or even some purple, because it was so rare and expensive. So, taking that into context and in consideration, the fact that one of the highest figures in the town here that Senku is in is wearing purple, I don't think that's really much of a coincidence. I think that's quite deliberate, because she is, as a matter of fact, basically royalty. She really is, right? She's basically royalty of the town. She's married to the chief and whatnot, and she is a gift. But that aside, yeah, it's clearly not coincidental that her outfit is purple. If not purple, some dye of nearly that's nearly purple, Ichigo or etc. Moving on. Another factor I think you can see in this frame is the fact that Ruri is showing a lot of skin, actually. There's some skin there, she's bearing an entire arm, she's showing her entire shoulders, and you can perhaps even, some curvatures around the chest. And I don't think that's a coincidence, actually, often in ancient times, or even modern society, high royalty, and the people high in society tend to be more clothed. They tend to be more equipped with clothing that's much more appropriate, according to what can generally be seen as typical social standards. But in this particular village, where it's not like in the whatever islands you see in the Pacific, where everyone's has no clothes on anyway. You can tell people are dressed quite appropriately. This woman back here, she's in entirely appropriate clothing, the more Victorian style actually, but it's fine. This guy is clothed completely fine. This guy's clothed even more fine, whatever the hell he's wearing. But they're clothed completely and entirely. It's not like in those random Polynesian islands where people have no clothes on, or have barely any clothes on. That actually might be a bit of a stereotypical, perhaps a racist, generic instance of what they can be. But in this case, this is what she's wearing all day, and I think that's not coincidence. I think it actually might be a sign that the culture in this little town actually might be overly sexualized compared to the society that we live in. And I don't think it's a coincidence. If you look at her neck here, what is that? It's not quite a scarf per se. It's like a. It's like I would assert that it is actually a gag It is used to gag her neck. You know, I don't think they have any use for scarves here. Actually, if you think about this shoot, everyone else was wearing gags too. That's not a coincidence, is it? Yeah, that's a gag. That's not a scarf. They don't need any scarves. It's really hot in the setting that Senku's in. You know, that's not a scarf. It's a gag. She's wearing a gag. She's wearing a gag. He's wearing a gag. This guy's wearing a gag too. So these are actually all gags, which I think is a particular way to help develop their fetishes actually. And I don't think that's a coincidence at all. So yes, I do believe, at least in the town and the setting that Senku's in, they're actually quite used to sexuality, which I don't think is a coincidence. And to further back up that assertion, which some of you might actually not believe, you can actually tell that the background here, this background, the background, it's orange, and that might actually, to some people that might not be a detail to consider, but I think it's actually important because orange, if you look it up, I looked it up on Google, so it's really reliable. Orange can be a form of sexuality, as I was saying, and perhaps in contribution to sexuality, a form of free sexual expression, as said, a form of fascination, exploration of fetishes, fun and enjoyment, and perhaps in happiness, definitely stimulation, a balanced life, perhaps, and, it can contribute to health, having a healthy sex life, and encouragement, creativity, perhaps, certainly enthusiasm, and some forms of joy, warmth, and heat, especially heat. So yeah, I don't think that's a coincidence. Some of you might think I'm joking, but no, I'm really serious. I do believe there's like a very subtle form of sexual expression in Senku, or in Dr. Stone, that is. Sorry, not Senku. Perhaps in Senku too, but we don't know if any sexuality that Senku has, because he might as well be a robot. As far as I can tell, at least. Moving on. If you look at the image here, if you look a bit more, Rui's blushing. Typical blushing fashion, which is really cute, but one might think, the typical viewer might think that she's just blushing because, Senku's putting the, what is that, glass or some shit, on her bare back, and we might be thinking that she's blushing because, oh no, the guy is touching my back with I think it's like a cup of sorts, it doesn't matter. But you might think she's blushing because she's embarrassed, but I like to assert that might not be the case. This actually might be a very, very, very interesting detail that the animators might be putting in here. And it could actually be a sign of what they call idiopathic craniofacial of that thing. So what this is it's basically actually a blushing disease, where the people who have the disease blush uncontrollably, and this actually might be a sign of that disease. As we know, Rui is kind of sickly. She's not the most healthy person, although she was cured in this episode. I don't think her immune system is all that healthy. She might not have the healthiest body. It's totally not because of my lack of understanding in biology and diseases. It's totally because the animators put it there on a deliberate purpose to foreshadow perhaps a future disease to come for Rui, right? So just a little detail, perhaps possibly in the future that could happen. I could totally be wrong. I don't know. Right? The next detail I'd like to point out is might actually be a bit more plot breaking in general. Now I must warn you, I haven't actually read the manga. I haven't read anything. I don't know anything about the source material. I've only watched anime. And I've only watched up to episode 15, as is the making of this video right now. But one prediction, one piece of foreshadowing that I would like to assert is through the fact that if you look closely, that fucking hair that Senku has, that's not normal hair. I don't know if you've seen people in real life, because I don't really see much people in real life either, because I usually stay inside. But people tend not to have that hair, which is like, like a leak. It looks like a leak. If you search up what a leak looks like, it's actually very comparable. They're very, very, very huge similarities, big parallels, very similar to each other. And some people could perhaps assert it looks like a pineapple, which I found on Google Images, which could have some truth in it. I'm not sure. So that she might the typical viewer might not think about too much. They might be like, oh, it's just like he looks like a mad scientist. It's not a big piece of detail. But I would assert this actually might be a very huge detail that's in plain sight. And I would like to assert that perhaps Senkyu is not even a human. No human, no human that I've ever seen in reality has had that sort of hair, or even that sort of intelligence that this man has. He has enviable amounts of intellectual ability. He can calculate, numbers that like a typical Asian can even calculate. In early episodes, it was shown that he was counting the entire time he was unconscious and frozen in a stone. So I would like to assert that possibly Senkyu is not even human, because no one that I know is that smart, realistically. And although you might suggest that that's just an aspect of anime, which is fiction inherently, in this case at least. I'm not so sure. I think it's very possible that he's like some kind of alien. Maybe he's Yuki's fourth cousin or something. I'm not sure. And if you think about it, we don't know the background of these characters in the background either. We don't know where they're from. So these guys might actually not be human. Think about it. Pineapple hair, leek hair, and these guys? Look at their mouths. That's not true. Look at their fucking mouths. They're fucking huge. Look at it. No, it's not an anime thing. It's a detail of the story, right? I mean, their mouths are fucking huge. Just look at that. In proportion to their faces, they're like gorillas. And I don't mean like in a racist way. Like I looked up in Google Images, a big mouth monster, right? Now that is comparable to these folks right here. Very comparable. This guy isn't a human. And I would assert that perhaps in a similar fashion, by logic, reasoning, these guys aren't human either. Just an assertion, every possibility that, if I turn out to be right, I called it right here in this video. And I should be given plenty of credit. Even in the worst cases, K-On! Mouths where, what's her name? Miho? Well, anyway, in this picture, K-On! Yeah, this girl has a mouth defect, but it's not as bad as these guys, which have huge mouths. And I don't think that's a coincidence. And so I would assert a future plot twist as that these guys turn out to be aliens.